If you've ever wondered what a storm sounds like on the sun, it sounds a little like this. Seems like a robot sound like R2-D2, but under great duress. Until the 19th century, space weather didn't have much of an effect on our day-to-day lives. But now we can't ignore it, because a roster of critical technologies are vulnerable to these kinds of storms because their magnetic fields have the potential to take down the internet or to short out power grids. In fact, back in 2019, FEMA made a list of the kinds of calamities that could paralyze the nation, and at the top of the list was a pandemic, and not too much further down was a severe solar storm. And it turns out our adversaries have gotten wise to this, and they take advantage. Do adversaries just lie in wait, waiting for a storm?
It's pretty accurate to say that our adversaries are ready to take advantage of any situation that is going to cause us to have less of an understanding of what's going on orbit.
From Recorded Future News, I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here's Mic Drop. Today, we take you to a place where space weather is top of mind. The Space Watch Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
All right, so we are walking into the Watch Center. Follow me.
And one of the things they do is track space weather and how adversaries like Russia and China are increasingly trying to find ways to leverage them.
You might not realize that what you're seeing is actually adversary activity because it's being shielded by a space weather event.
Stay with us. From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here's Mic Drop.
Welcome back to our special coverage of the extreme solar storm now crossing North America.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
It's the stunning and rare sky show captivating the nation from coast to coast.
I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Periodically, the sun emits these explosions of particles known as coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. Basically, they're a giant release of plasma and magnetic fields that go out into space. CMEs can travel at speeds of thousands of kilometers per second, and they contain billions of tons of material. When a CME reaches Earth, it typically does two things. One, it creates amazing, colorful auroras, like they did last May, bringing something that looks like the northern lights to places that typically don't get them. And two, set off geomagnetic storms that can mimic a lot of the things we're seeing hackers try to do these days, like mess with power grids or tweak satellites in orbit. And when these storms happen, Murray Levinson, the deputy director at the Space Watch Center, is always working overtime.
What we're really looking for is what are the impacts? What are the impacts to satellites? What are the impacts on the terrestrial layer? And will the adversary take advantage of it?
The Space Watch Center is part of a broader effort to get government agencies and private companies to share information. They're part of what's called the Space ISAC, which stands for Information Sharing and Analysis Center. All kinds of critical sectors of the economy have stood up similar ISACs, like there's a water ISAC and a health ISAC and a financial services ISAC. And they collect, analyze, and share information about threats, vulnerabilities, and incidents. It's one of the ways we guard against cyber attacks aimed at critical infrastructure. If a member of the ISAC sees something weird in their networks, they let everybody know. It's kind of like a neighborhood watch. And the Space ISAC does that for space. So when solar storms started raging in May and then again in October, the Space ISAC went into a kind of hurricane watch mode. The sun was burping out all these fiery magnetic particles, and Moraid and her team were gathering data on its effects from partners all over the world.
So as that situation was unfolding, not only were we aggregating all of the available information that we could find and sending those push alerts to our members through the storm, we were also getting requests for information out to our members. What are you experiencing? What are you seeing? Has this affected your assets? Are you seeing communications breakdown? even the smallest bit of information helps when it comes to creating that picture of what's going on.
The Watch Center looks like something out of Dr. Strangelove's War Room.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
It sits on the ground floor of a nondescript office complex not far from downtown Colorado Springs. It's the size of a large classroom, and it has no exterior windows. It's announced by a bank of big screens that run the length of one wall.
Some days you walk in here and you could hear a pin drop because everyone's got their headphones in and you can see that they're either monitoring for something on their screen or they're writing a report.
When the Watch Center isn't giving tours, the screens are filled with real-time images of space. But because we're there, the screens are populated with relatively innocuous images. A list of satellites on one screen, an image of a solar flare on another.
So what you're looking at is more space weather visualization.
What's that brown one?
That is solar flare activity.
There was a bright explosion of yellows and oranges and browns on the screen. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's very cool. Solar flares, these waves of particles, are what cause people like Mulray to lose sleep because they can disrupt radio communications by absorbing or reflecting certain frequencies. And as we mentioned before, they can damage power grids and endanger electronics. They can even cause satellites to short out or move more slowly.
It really can vary pretty significantly. I mean, there's some low-level charging impacts that can happen on a satellite, so that could affect their functionality in some way, not to get too in-depth on that
Sort of
piece.
like a blackout during a thunderstorm.
It's similar, yes, but also you can see some of the mechanical components experience difficulties after a solar event.
Because it's magnetic.
Yes.
Got it.
And so you can see increased drag on satellites as well. Sometimes it doesn't mean too much.
What is increased drag on the satellite?
Slowing
up?
Yeah, the way that I think about it is the way that they're maneuvering through orbit.
Which adversaries could see as the perfect opportunity. Mulray has seen a satellite cozy up to another satellite under the assumption that the storm will be hiding what they're doing.
You might see an adversary satellite buddy up nice and close and just be within a uncomfortable distance of your satellite. So maybe they're listening. Maybe they're just trying to hear and understand. Maybe it's an aggression tactic.
And if this was once this is up and you have the satellites up on your screen, would you be able to see an adversary satellite getting closer to yours?
You can, yes.
No way.
Mm-hmm. You can physically see the two birds, the two little white dots on the globe kind of maneuvering closer together, yeah.
That's crazy. They've used solar storms to act as a kind of cosmic diversion.
There are other things more on the cyber side of things, where an adversary might look to get into your system during an event like this because they know that A, you're not paying attention, or B, you don't have as much awareness of what's going on with your asset because of external events that are happening.
This happens a lot with cyber attacks, too. Adversaries strike during a long weekend or when the office is closed in hopes that the skeleton crew there to monitor things over the holiday might be too busy to notice some unusual behavior in a network. The Science and Technology Partnership Forum, an interagency group at the White House that works with NASA and private companies, tries to stay ahead of technologies and advancements and does studies and sets policies to help them. It suggested setting up a Space Watch Center back in 2017.
And the study essentially showed that the gaps in information sharing in the space sector were just far too great.
Since the Watch Center opened its doors a little over a year ago, more than 100 entities have joined. Companies like Microsoft and Lockheed Martin and universities and even foreign space agencies are all working together trying to make our assets in space that much more resilient.
I think the more information that we get and we digest into the Watch Center, not only will we become more and more aware of these, but I think as the attacks increase, we're going to have our finger on that pulse.
Mulray said the pace of attacks against space systems is already picking up. Nearly every week, the ISAC is tracking some 100 attacks against critical infrastructure related to space systems. And now we're about to hit a long stretch of bad solar weather. According to NASA, the sun is at something called its solar maximum period. Every 11 years, the sun releases these massive explosions of light, energy, and solar radiation, and its magnetic poles flip. What that means is for the next year, space weather events will likely become more frequent. And Mulraid and the Watch Center will be keeping a close eye. From Recorded Future News, this has been Click Here's Mic Drop. It was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Jade Abdul-Malik, Erica Gaida, and me, Tina Temple-Reston. It was edited by Karen Duffin. We'll be back on Tuesday, Election Day, with a special Click Here. Have a great weekend.